should let you know that Betsy DeVos has now been confirmed by the Senate, requiring a 51st vote by Vice President Mike Pence to seat Betsy DeVos. And we've got a clip. Well, let's play this clip from Al Franken right now, because I think this is really the most telling thing. If ideologically you are in favor of destroying the public school as an institution, I'm not saying that Betsy DeVos will be in a position to do this as chair of the Department of Education, but she certainly has expressed a desire to do that. If you are in favor of that for ideological reasons, you just don't believe that society should be educating people in public schools, rather what we should do is provide subsidies for people to send their children to private schools or parochial schools, and if the subsidy's not enough, then they go to a really crappy one. But even if you believe that ideologically, you couldn't really find somebody who knew less about what they were talking about, it appeared, about about the idea of education than Betsy DeVos. So Al Franken, as part of the Democratic talkathon, they had 24 hours they could maintain to keep talking and, I guess, ultimately convince one Republican to defect. There were two who did, Murkowski and Collins. They were looking for a third. Al Franken brings up the most salient point, and that essentially is that Donald Trump is the Republican Party. The Republican Party is Donald Trump. They are going to give him what he wants, and he's going to give them what they want.
But I'd like to close by asking a few questions of my colleagues who are still considering a vote in her favor. If Mrs. DeVos's performance didn't convince you that she lacks the qualifications for this job, what would have to have happened in that hearing in order to convince you? If you cannot bring yourself to vote against this nominee, is there anyone President Trump could nominate for any position that you could vote against? And if we cannot set party loyalty aside long enough to perform the essential duty of vetting the president's nominees, what are we even doing here? Mr. President, the Constitution gives us that power to reject cabinet nominations specifically so that we can prevent fundamentally ill-equipped nominees like Betsy DeVos from assuming positions of power for which they are not qualified. Let's do our job. For the sake of our children, let's do our job. I yield the floor.
Well said. I don't think it was going to convince any of those Republicans, but the name of the game here is to put pressure on those senators, guys like Jeff Flake, Dean Heller, who may feel a little pressure from appointing someone this laughably bad. For confirming, I should say. Al Franken, maybe your next Democratic nominee.
Warren Franken, 2020.
That's what Kelly says. Warren Franken, 2020.
In that order.
And now Michael says off mic, Sanders. What? Sanders Franken.
Sanders
Be a
Franken,
little
yeah.
old though.
He seems pretty robust to me.
He does.
Most of these other people look.
But let's get a lady in there.
Hey, it's Sam Seder. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here. Over. Subscribe.